Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh, shit, I didn't mean to click on that video. Who is this loser? Or, conversely, oh man, he posted another one of these. God, is this guy in love with the sound of his own voice or what? But after those initial thoughts, you're thinking to yourself, yes, here's a man on the verge of 40 going to see a romantic comedy on Valentine's Day weekend alone. But you know what? That used to bother me, but after taking the advice of several Facebook statuses I saw this past Valentine's Day, all of which were posted incidentally by people in long-term happy committed relationships, I've decided that it is more important to love being with me. So to that end, I am going to see this movie with my head held high and my emotions in check. Why, someone very special even got me this box of Valentine's Day candy. And that special someone was me. Candy will hide the sadness. Don't judge me, Bear! So, I feel more conflicted about this movie than almost any movie I've seen in a long time, because I kind of hate it. But at the same time, I think it's kind of interesting. And that's not an emotion I was expecting. I was expecting to just hate this movie. And don't get me wrong, there's so much about it I just outright hate. But I also think it does some things well or well-ish. And that just throws everything off. Because it's easy when you just hate something. But when you hate something and it also has some redeemable qualities, well then, then you just feel like a cop-out. So this review is probably going to run very hot and cold, just because it's the way this movie is. All right, so let's talk about Isn't It Romantic? So you've probably seen trailers and whatnot for it, but just in case, so Rebel Wilson is, of course, you're not your typical Hollywood beauty. Let's be nice and say that. Who's taught at a young age that romantic comedies are terrible and stupid because there is no Prince Charming and he's never going to fall in love with a person like you, blah, 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 blah. During a mugging, she gets hit in the head and John Candy delirious style dreams that she is trapped in a romantic comedy, and all the people in her life are, the stock characters from such, and there's a lot of hijinks. I think I should rephrase. I think the movie needs to rephrase it. She's not trapped in a romantic comedy. She's trapped in a 2000s forward romantic comedy. Because romantic comedies weren't always god-awful. They used to be good back in the 80s and into about the mid-90s, when they were a touch more realistic and they didn't have quite so many tropes. But the 2000s came along. Actually, I think about the late 90s into the 2000s, you got the tropes. And the tropes just kind of took it over and made it ridiculous. Oh, Dudley's still a little punch drunk from the intro. Sorry, Dudley. Thanks for being a sport there, buddy. I like old school romantic comedies. I like, Harry Met Sally is the best romantic comedy ever. I like You Got Mail and things like that. I even like some of the early Reese Witherspoon ones, like Sweet Home Alabama or Just Like Heaven. I don't think they're terrible. But yeah, truthfully, as we get into the 2000s, they become unbearable. I saw a Katherine Heigl one back when they were trying to convince us that Katherine Heigl was a thing. And yeah, they're just they're just awful. They're terrible now. And this movie is more focused on those and those tropes than some of the good ones. So here, let's talk about what I hate first, because I think, yeah, let's just talk about what I hate. So first of all, Rebel Wilson just fucking annoys me, because I don't think she's funny. She's got that, what we think of as comedy now is, oh, I'm just really sarcastic, and I'm just gonna point out that everything's crazy and shit, and just be really snarky about it. You know, that's comedy now, and it doesn't work for me. It's not funny. It's pointing things out, and that's kind of another thing I hate about this movie, is that's kind of what it does for a lot of it. A parody. Okay, last time I gave my lecture on, so bad it's good. Let's talk about parody. All right, you know why parodies are hard to do? Because you actually have to love the thing that you're making fun of. You have to understand why those mistakes, or why those cliches, or why those tropes are in place and part of the product in order to make fun of them appropriately. Okay? Because a good parody isn't saying this is stupid because of this. It's saying I love this even though this aspect of it doesn't make sense, or this aspect of it is kind of ridiculous. Okay? That's what a good parody does. This film, for the most of its runtime, all it is doing is just pointing out. A romantic comedy does this, a romantic comedy does that, a romantic comedy does this, a romantic comedy does this. Thank you. We're well aware of this, but so what? I'm not trying to say that every comedy has to have a deeper point. I'm not saying that, but it's not comedy to just point shit out. That's not funny, and especially, again, doing it in the modern style of comedy where you're doing it in the most sleek and sarcastic and hipster way. Oh, I'm so much cooler than this. I don't watch romantic comedy. Suddenly everybody knew the dance choreography. And also, can I just point on that, because again, I haven't seen many romantic comedies recently. Are there a lot of dance numbers in them now? Because I do not recall a lot of dance numbers in romantic comedies. But this movie is very insistent that there are. And makes the joke, well, how did everybody know the words and the choreography? That's not making fun of a romantic comedy, that's making fun of a musical. Two different genres. Admittingly, musicals start out as romantic comedies, but let's not get into the history of musical theater. And also, just kind of going off of Rebel Wilson there, I mean, I do not find, I'm sorry, and I'm just going to say it, I'm just going to say it out loud, and you can hate me if you want to. I do not find the constant joke of, oh, that fat person smacked into something and hurt themselves, that fucking funny. Okay? It's not funny. Or it takes more of comic genius to make it funny. Just, oh, I'm fat and I ran into something. Oh. They do that joke like 5 million fucking times in this. And it's so funny because she's fat. Yeah, again, this film is going with that thing that is very popular now, and that is we're too smart and we're too clever for this. It's enjoying the romantic comedy ironically. Or rather, it's enjoying the romantic comedy ironically, but then realizing that maybe there's an actual point to it. Oh, I shouldn't have dismissed it, blah, blah, blah. And it's so insincere. It's just one of those movies where, the hip young filmmakers are just trying to go, oh, I'm too smart for these movies that people have watched for years. And if you do like them, you're stupid. And again, this is where modern parodies fall flat. Telling me I'm stupid for liking something, that's not making me laugh. So, I really kind of hate that about this movie, and and that's the majority of this fucking movie. It is really fucking annoying in that respect. But I also have to say, and if I'm being honest, there are parts of it and aspects of it that I do think they were trying to do something better, and either they just didn't know how to pull it off, or it just didn't work all the way. It almost worked all the way, but didn't. What I like about this movie, and I'm going to spoil, I don't think there's really a spoiler here, so I don't care. So she's trapped in the romantic comedy. She's trying to find her way out. So she thinks that the only way to do that is to fall in love with one of the two guys, either the handsome guy played by Chris Hemsworth's brother, or the other guy played by Adam what's-his-name from the Pitch Perfect movies. So of course she's going to go, of course, for someone who claimed that she'd seen all these romantic comedies and knew the formula, she didn't know that they very rarely end up with the first guy. It always ends with the second guy. I mean, that's how these things fucking work. But anyway, so she thinks that's how she's going to break out of it. But what she comes to realize, and what the tropes are kind of lining up to kind of teach her, as it's obviously a dream, this from the word go, is not that she has to fall in love with someone else, but that she has to love herself, and she has to appreciate herself and stop taking herself for granted, and then someone can finally love her. Okay, so in the grand scheme of things, that is not a bad hook to hang your movie on. It's not a bad idea. And again, the movie does it fairly competently, I think. And I say I think it's because I'm just not sure. I just don't know. That's where they're going, but as I'm thinking back on it, it's like, I don't know if they knew that. But I like that is kind of the end message. That she has to learn to love herself before she can open herself up to somebody else. I think that is a good lesson, not one you hear a lot in movies or TV. So, yeah, I think that actually did work. And I think Rebel Wilson did pull that aspect of the performance off pretty well. The problem is just so much of the rest of it is just so unappealing and so just, I don't know, so modern comedy. So, and I've said it millions of times, I'll say it a million more, and I don't know why I subject myself to these things if I know I'm probably not going to like them. But I'm always hoping something is going to surprise me. It's just I'm not a fan of modern comedy. I'm not a fan of that I'm smarter than everybody else and I'm just going to be so dry and sarcastic about everything. It paints the wrong picture. Okay, this film maybe this film could have worked for me if maybe she wasn't, she's not a bitch, but she's just a sarcastic pain in the ass. From the word go. And I think if she was a little bit, I don't know, if she was pulling maybe a Clark Kent Superman thing, like in the, they keep saying how she's a doormat and all this, that, and the other thing, but she's so loud and bombastic and, always the center of everything. It's hard to see how anyone would not notice her. I'm just saying. So if they pulled it off, or maybe she was a little bit more shy, or a little, I don't want to say demure, that's not the right word, but let's just go with shy. If she was a little shyer in the opening parts of the film, and then we see her get more and more Rebel Wilson and more of a rebel, no pun intended, as the movie picks up steam and as she gets into the romantic comedy world and she starts to get more confidence in herself, then I think it could have worked. The story about loving yourself and letting yourself out and doing all that, I think that could have worked. But as it is, she's, yeah, I don't think it works completely. Yeah, it's a comedy that I think I smiled at once. I will say I thought the funniest part of the film was the gay best friend that she gets when she's in the romantic comedy world, and he's just, the joke is he's very stereotypically gay and all that. And so he was actually pretty funny just playing on that stereotype and just running with it. Excuse me. And he has a pretty good monologue there at the very end. And that is kind of the weird thing about this film, is it almost works as a modern day romantic comedy. Like if they released it as a modern day romantic comedy without being all self-aware, it actually might have worked better than what they tried to do. To be completely honest, I think if they cut out the beginning, the bookends there, and just had it be a romantic comedy with maybe one character who's just a little bit more self-aware than everybody else about, how too picturesque and perfect everything is, that might have been more entertaining and funnier, and I don't know, for me at least. But the self-referential and the self-awareness, I think, just kind of hurts the film. So yeah, I gotta say I was pretty unentertained, and I was pretty bored and pretty, I won't say angry. I wasn't as angry as I was after Happy Death Day, but I was just kind of like, oh God, just stop. But then about halfway through the film, I had to admit that, there were parts of it and story aspects, and they were doing something with the idea that was actually kind of interesting. So I give them points for effort and for pulling off certain aspects of it that, that I think made it a worthwhile endeavor. Oh, I gotta say this too. I'm sorry. Don't mean to rip on too many people here, but I think it's clear who got the majority of the talent in the Hemsworth clan. Just putting that out there. So final grade for this one. I'm gonna be very generous, and that's my generosity for these things is running out quickly. Because originally I was gonna say an F, because I hated it. I hated so much about it. But I think there was something there. They were trying to make a point, and I think they made that point fairly okay. So I think it brings this one up to a C-. No, I can't do that. I'm going to say a D+. I can't go all the way to C-. The minute I said that, I was like, being too nice. D+. It is not the worst thing I have ever seen in my life, but it is certainly not as good or as smart or as funny as it seems to think it is, or the two old bitches that were sitting next to me who talked through the entire fucking movie seem to think it was. Of course, I don't think they've ever seen a movie before. They didn't quite get it through their heads that it's a dream from the word go. But they were acting like everything was like real. When it turns out the Liam Hemsworth character, the rich, handsome billionaire, is actually a jerk, they're like, oh my God, he just said that. It's like, it's a fucking dream, bitch. Maybe you shut up for 5 fucking minutes. Sorry, I've been bottling that up for the last 2 hours. So, a D+, you can do worse, but I think we can do better, folks. I think we should demand better of our romantic comedies. Again, romantic comedies used to be amazing. Again, Harry Met Sally. How is that so hard? You get likable characters who have actual chemistry, who also have flaws. You know, they don't have to be what romantic comedies have become, and that is, as this movie kind of points out, just cliches and stock characters. You can actually make a good one of these. Just 2 years ago. 2 years ago, Everybody Loves Somebody. There's a good romantic comedy. It's not hard. I think it's hard because, much like I said when I was talking about Stan and Laurel, or Stan and Ollie there, is that I think it's hard because you actually have to have an understanding or a affection for human relationships to make a good romantic comedy. And I don't think a lot of people have that understanding, or they're trying to make it appeal to such a wide audience that they dumb it down so far, like this movie, you know. And I don't think you need to do that. We can make good romantic comedies again. Let's make romantic comedies great again. I swear I'm going to make a hashtag work. Hashtag make romantic comedies great again. Because this movie, as much as it would like to think so, it doesn't. All right. Oh, Mr. Chirpy, buddy, we got to do something about you. You keep passing out. I'm sorry, we got to do something about that. That's distracting. Anyway, so there we have it. Yeah. I'm just going to end this one on a whimper instead of a bang. So, as always, thanks for joining me for the drive home. And, yeah, I'm just going to wrap this one up. So, drive safe, and I'll see you at the movies. Hashtag make romantic comedies great again. Hashtag don't judge me, Bear.